Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Natsu had dual elements. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 50 Trading Secrets. The following morning, streets of Magnolia. What about this one? Gajeel muttered to himself, before bending down and picking up a stray cat that was white with black stripes. After entering a brief staring contest with the confused feline, Gajeel groaned in frustration and set the cat back down. Damn it! Not this one either. With an annoyed huff, the Iron Dragon Slayer stomped through the alley he was in, inspecting all the curious cats around him. The felines came in all shapes, colors, and sizes, but none of them were like Happy or Carla. None of these cats are right. Releasing a heavy sigh, Gajeel rubbed the sleep out of his eyes and leaned against the alley's wall, slowly sliding onto the ground. Salamander and that Wendy brat both have cats, and two types of Dragon Slayer magic. I'm a Dragon Slayer just like them. Why don't I have a cat or secondary magic? What's he doing? Levy thought as she discreetly poked her head into the alley, watching as a stray cat walked up to Gajeel. The Iron Dragon Slayer's eyes lit up for a moment, only to be dashed a split second later when the cat scratched his face several times. Howling in pain, Gajeel clutched his face as he rolled around on the ground. Suppressing a giggle, Levy stepped into the alley and began to walk toward the floundering Iron Dragon Slayer. I should probably help him out. Same time, Fairy Hills. Oh sweet mother of God. Kana thought, slowly cracking her eyes open, before quickly closing them again when the early morning sunlight hit her face. Shit, can someone turn off the damn sun already? Letting out a low groan, Kana reached up and clutched her throbbing head, feeling a sharp pain course through her entire body. Ugh, I definitely drank too much last night. It was then that Kana finally noticed her familiar surroundings. When did I get back home? The last thing I remember was storming out of the guild after Natsu tried to talk to me about guild arts. Furrowing her brow a bit, Kana released a light sigh. I should probably apologize to Natsu, he was just trying to be nice to me. I'll talk to him at the dash. Kana was pulled from her thoughts when she finally realized that something was pressing against her chest as she tried to sit up. It was then Kana noticed how incredibly warm her bed felt, warm enough to almost lull her back to sleep. Looking down, Kana spotted a tuft of spiky pink hair poking out from the top of her blanket. Knowing only a single person with hair like that, Kana felt her entire body tense. With a trembling hand, Kana reached out and yanked down her blanket. Nestled in between her impressive breasts was Natsu Dragneel. The pink-haired dragon slayer was still sound asleep and snoring softly. Okay, calm the hell down. Kana thought as she tried to slow down her racing heart, feeling her face flushing slightly. We're both still in our clothes, so we didn't have sex, I think. Damn it, I can't remember anything that happened last night. Releasing an annoyed huff, Kana ran a hand through her disheveled hair. Looking back down at Natsu's sleeping face, Kana couldn't stop herself from smiling softly. Reaching out, Kana gently brushed a few stray strands of pink hair out of Natsu's face. He's really cute when he's asleep. Knowing that she couldn't stay in bed all day, Kana stretched herself out and slipped out of the covers, doing her best to not wake the sleeping dragon slayer. After drinking a large glass of water to help ease her hangover, Kana made her way into the bathroom and took a quick shower, hoping to get the stench of booze off her body. Once Kana exited the shower, she wrapped a towel around herself and walked out into the living room, drying her hair as she went. When the brunette card mage saw that Natsu was still asleep, she briefly considered just heading to the guild, wishing to avoid any awkward conversations. But that thought didn't last long. She knew that Natsu deserved at least some sort of explanation for her rude behavior. Quickly changing into a fresh bikini top and pair of pants, Kana made her way into the room's small kitchenette. It wouldn't be much, but she figured that she'd at least make Natsu some breakfast. Kana winced when she felt another pounding headache, causing her to pause for a moment before she started to brew a fresh pot of coffee. The brunette card mage wasn't much of a cook, but she did know how to make a few basic things. Peering into her fridge, Kana groaned when she saw how barebones it was. She'd have to go shopping later. Pulling out the last of her bacon, Kana decided to cook that along with a few pieces of toast. If Natsu wanted more, she did have some fruit he could have as well. As Kana started to fry up the bacon, it didn't take long for her to hear Natsu start to stir. Just as the bacon began to sizzle, the pink-haired dragon slayer walked into her kitchen, suppressing a yawn as he's scratching his stomach. "Morning, Kana," Natsu muttered, leaning against the counter behind her and crossing his arms over his chest. "Did you sleep well? If I'm being honest," Kana said as she paused for a moment, a small smile spreading across her face. She couldn't remember exactly what had happened, but the one thing she did recall was a comforting warmth as she drifted off to sleep. "It was actually the best sleep I've had in a long time." "Really? That's surprising," Natsu said in a teasing tone, a smirk spreading across his face as he quirked an eyebrow. "You were pretty smashed last night. And I'm assuming that I have you to thank for getting me home," Kana said as she walked over and popped 4 pieces of bread into her toaster. "Thanks for that, Natsu, and I'm sorry for how I acted yesterday at the guild, I mean it. There's no need to thank me, I was just looking out for one of my nakama. Can't have you getting sick," Natsu said with a large grin, his mouth watering a bit as he watched Kana prod the crackling bacon. "And there's no need to apologize. There was something bothering you and I shouldn't have pried. No, I shouldn't have lashed out at you like that, you were just trying to be nice," Kana said as she got out 2 mugs and poured Natsu and herself a cup of coffee. "You take your coffee black, right?" "Yeah, Urza and loose like cream, sugar, and all that other crap," Natsu said, grabbing the mug Kana offered him and taking a sip. Releasing a content sigh, Natsu set the mug down on the counter next to him. Staring at Kana for several moments, Natsu decided to ask her something that had been bothering him. "So, I have to ask, do you really know about Luce and me?" "Well, if I didn't know, I do now," Kana replied as she watched the pink-haired dragon slayer stiffen, realizing the mistake he had made. Chuckling to herself, Kana walked over and playfully flicked Natsu's nose. "Relax, I did know about you and Lucy already. Bisca and I saw you 2 smooching during the whole Phantom Lord incident. Before you start freaking out, only Bisca and I know." "Oh, I'm not worried or anything," Natsu said nonchalantly, shrugging his shoulders as he relaxed a bit, his mind finally at ease. "I'm more concerned about what Luce and the others will think. Lucy already knows that I know, so you can rest easy," Kana said as she trailed off a bit at the end, something that Natsu had said sticking out to her. "Wait, what do you mean by others?" "Oh fuck me," Natsu thought, feeling a chill run down his spine when he saw the annoyed look Kana was giving him as she rested her hands on her hips. "Why can't I keep my big mouth shut? Natsu, don't you dare lie to me," Kana said as she stormed over and grabbed Natsu's vest, pulling the pink-haired dragon slayer close. "Are you cheating on Lucy?" "I swear, Natsu, if you dash." "No. I would never cheat on Luce," Natsu blurted out, the surprisingly serious tone of his voice and look in his eyes catching Kana off guard. "I love Lucy. I would never hurt her like that." "Then what did you mean when you said others a minute ago?" Kana asked as she watched the pink-haired dragon slayer pause for a moment, seemingly mulling the question over. After his last 2 slip-ups, Natsu wanted to choose his words very carefully. "It looks like you really don't want to tell me, so how about this, you tell me what's going on between you and Lucy, and I'll tell you why I was acting so bitchy yesterday." "You promise not to tell anyone else in the guild?" "I'm serious, Kana, no one else can know," Natsu said in an uncharacteristically serious tone, locking eyes with the brunette card mage. When Kana nodded her head, Natsu released a light sigh and sat down at the small table next to the kitchenette. Quickly turning off her stove, Kana put off making breakfast and sat down across from Natsu. "Okay, deal, I'll tell you. Before I say anything though, please don't jump to any conclusions and let me explain everything. Now you've got me intrigued," Kana said as she quirked an eyebrow, taking a brief sip of her coffee. Setting her mug back down, Kana leaned closer toward Natsu. "Start talking." After taking a deep breath to calm himself, Natsu began to explain the history of dragon slayers and the similarities they shared with dragons. As Natsu continued his story, especially the parts about dragon kings, Kana's eyes slowly began to widen in surprise. She was shocked at how, despite having multiple mates, dragon kings cared intimately for their lovers and would do anything for them. When Natsu began to explain mate marks and other changes that could happen to a dragon's mate, things started to click for Kana. Hold up, you said that Lucy got pink streaks in her hair after she became your mate. Kana said, stroking her chin as her mind began to race. Her eyes slowly widened when she remembered that two of her other guildmates also had pink streaks in their hair. Both Urza and Mirajane have streaks like that in their hair as well, so does that mean? I love all three of them with every fiber of my being. I'd do anything to make them happy. They're my destined mates. Natsu said with a warm smile as he tightly clutched his coffee mug. We're a family and we're all connected on a deep physical, emotional, and spiritual level. I've never heard you talk like this, Natsu. They must be really special to you. Kana said in a somewhat disappointed tone, twiddling her thumbs as she stared down into her coffee. I have to ask, will there be other girls? Probably, I can already think of a few. Natsu replied as his cheeks flushed slightly in embarrassment. But that's just the way my magic works, it pulls me towards suitable mates, it's an instinctual thing for me. Seeing that Kana was quite surprised by what he had told her, Natsu gave her a few minutes to process everything. Eventually, it looked like the brunette card mage had come to terms with the information she had just learned. Okay, Kana, I held up the end of my deal, now it's your turn. Fair is fair. Kana muttered, taking another sip of her coffee as she tried to mentally prepare herself. Releasing a light sigh, Kana locked eyes with Natsu, deciding to just rip the bandage off. The reason I was so worked up yesterday, it has to do with guild arts. Huh? Why guild arts? Natsu asked as his eyes narrowed slightly. Did he do something to upset you? Not exactly. Kana replied, tightly clasping her hands on top of the table, trying to stop them from shaking. Listen, Natsu, what I'm about to tell you, I haven't told anyone else. The only other person that knows is Master Makarov. So, you need to promise me that you won't say anything to anyone else, even Lucy, Urza, and Mirajane. The pink-haired dragon slayer briefly quirked an eyebrow before nodding his head. Seeing that Natsu was willing to keep quiet, Kana released a deep breath and smiled. Okay, good, that makes me feel better. Well, I guess I can't put this off any longer. Guild arts, well, he's my father. What? Natsu breathed out as his eyes widened in shock, completely stunned by what he had just heard. Are you serious? Yes, he was married to my mother years ago, but they split up before I was born. Kana explained, tearing her gaze away from Natsu's and staring down at the table. I was 6 years old when my mom got sick and died, but before she passed away, she told me about my father, and the reason why they separated. I know guild arts can be quite a womanizer. Natsu said as he leaned back in his seat and crossed his arms. Did he cheat on your mother? No, from everything Mom told me, they really loved each other. Kana replied, a small smile spreading across her face as she sniffled once to fight back her tears. But apparently, guild arts was so fixated on doing guild work that he was barely home, and my mom just couldn't take it anymore. So eventually she left him, and didn't even tell him that she was pregnant. I can't believe it. Natsu muttered as he stared at Kana for several moments before sniffing the air several times. You know, I never noticed before, but you do kinda smell like guild arts, it's really subtle though. Heh, your sense of smell always has been amazing, there's no tricking it. Kana said with a chuckle, leaning forward a bit and resting her chin on her palm. You know, I first came to Magnolia and joined Fairy Tail to search for my father. Then when I finally found him, I could never muster the courage to tell him that I was his daughter. I'd always make up excuses about how it wasn't the right time or that I didn't have the opportunity. I've been holding this secret inside me for years. Locking eyes with the pink-haired dragon slayer once again, Kana smiled at him. And honestly, it feels kinda good to tell someone else, like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. So, what are you going to do? Natsu asked before he took one final swig of his coffee, setting the empty mug off to the side. Who knows how long Gildarts will be in town? He could be here for a few weeks or gone tomorrow. I know I'm being weak, but I just can't face him right now. The reason I was drinking so much yesterday was that I wanted to muster up the courage to tell Gildarts the truth, but you know how well that turned out. Kana explained, a frown spreading across her face as she released a light sigh. I will tell him soon though, I can't put it off forever. Well, I won't push you to do anything, this is your decision to make. Natsu said with a grin as he reached out and gently gripped Kana's hand, causing a wave of comfort to wash over her. But I will have your back when you finally decide to tell Gildarts, and if you ever need to talk or anything, I'll always lend you an ear. Thanks Natsu, that actually means a lot to me. Kana said, giving the pink-haired dragon slayer's hand a light squeeze. Lucy, Urza, and Mira Jane are lucky to have a great guy like you. No, it's the other way around. Natsu said as he slowly shook his head. I'm lucky to have amazing girls like them who love me. He's usually such a loudmouthed idiot, but I guess he also has a sweet side as well. Whenever he was talking about Lucy, Urza, or Mira Jane, his entire demeanor changed and he seemed to perk up quite a bit. He really does love them all. Kana thought, locking eyes with the pink-haired dragon slayer. However, Kana couldn't stop her eyes from eventually drifting lower. Natsu's rock-hard pecs and six-pack abs had been staring at her all morning and she had managed to stop herself from staring at them. But she couldn't resist the temptation any longer. As Kana burned Natsu's chiseled body into her mind, she could feel her entire face heating up. Holy shit, I've known Natsu for years but I've never really looked at his body before. I mean, I've always known that he was muscular, but holy shit, he's absolutely ripped. Lucy, Urza, and Mira Jane definitely are lucky. They get to feel that body whenever they want. Fuck. I want to touch his abs so bad. Kana. The brunette was instantly pulled from her thoughts when she heard Natsu awkwardly speak up. You're staring quite a lot. Oh. I'm so sorry. Kana exclaimed as she quickly averted her eyes, now staring off to the side. I didn't mean to, I mean, you're just so. It's fine, Kana. No need to apologize. Natsu said with a smile, shrugging his shoulders. I'm used to people staring at me. For both good and bad reasons. It's still embarrassing being caught. Kana muttered as she momentarily glanced back at Natsu, her cheeks flushing bright red. What about you? I've caught you staring at me a few times before. Well, can you blame me? Natsu asked, deliberately lower his gaze to get an eyeful of Kana's exposed cleavage. You don't exactly try to hide anything. Hey, Natsu. Kana said in a somewhat sheepish tone as she turned back around to face the pink-haired dragon slayer. Natsu was surprised to see Kana starting to fidget slightly. Do you find me attractive? Are you kidding? You're beautiful, Kana. Natsu replied without hesitation, causing the brunette card mage to gasp in surprise. I don't think there's a man who would think you aren't stunning. Any guy would be lucky to have an amazing girl like you. I wasn't expecting a response like that. Especially so quickly. Kana thought as she felt her entire body heat up. If Natsu really feels that way about me, I may not get another chance like this. Fuck it. I'm just gonna go for it. What's up, Kana? Natsu asked, watching as the brunette card mage stared down at her lap, appearing to be contemplating something. Are you okay, HMPH? The pink-haired dragon slayer was cut off mid-sentence when Kana suddenly lunged forward and grabbed his vest. Kana yanked Natsu closer and crashed her lips against his. Having never kissed anyone before, Kana had nothing to compare the lip lock to. But she was sure of one thing, she could feel sparks flying as a pleasurable tingle ran down her spine. Natsu was initially caught off guard by the sudden kiss, but it didn't take him long to come back to his senses and return the lip lock. Deciding to take charge, Natsu deepened the kiss, sliding his tongue into Kana's mouth. The brunette card mage moaned softly when Natsu's tongue began to wrestle with hers. Both fairy tale mages continued their heated lip lock for a few more moments before they reluctantly separated. I'm definitely not complaining, but what was that about? Natsu asked as he locked eyes with the brunette card mage. A ruddy blush had spread across Kana's face as she panted lightly. Kana, do you dash? Don't say another word or else I might change my mind. Kana exclaimed, slamming her hands onto the table and shooting up out of her seat. Bed. Now. Yes, ma'am. Natsu cheered with a perverted grin as he dashed over and leaped onto Kana's bed. The brunette card mage was right behind him, hopping onto the bed and straddling Natsu's waist. Cupping the pink-haired dragon slayer's face, Kana lunged forward and kissed him once again. As their tongues danced, Natsu's arms wrapped around Kana and pulled her closer. The brunette card mage's massive breasts squashed against his hard chest, causing her to moan into their kiss. Natsu's hand caressed Kana's exposed back, the warm and tingling sensations causing goosebumps to spread across her body. Soon their lip lock was broken, a trail of saliva still connecting them. Holy shit, Kana. Let's get this off. Kana said, reaching down and tugging at Natsu's vest. In an instant, the pink-haired dragon slayer lifted his back off the bed and practically ripped the vest off. Kana was practically drooling at the sight of Natsu's bare chest, his well-defined muscles tantalizing her. With a shaky breath, Kana began to run her hands along Natsu's body. A moan escaped her lips when her fingers traced his abs. Fuck, I've wanted to do this for a long time. As Kana continued to drink in Natsu's body, she noticed what appeared to be a faint scar near his hip. Following the scar with her hand, Kana saw that it wrapped all the way around to Natsu's back. Her curiosity getting the better of her, Kana flipped Natsu over, causing the pink-haired dragon slayer to yelp in surprise. However, when Kana saw Natsu's back, she gasped in shock. The pink-haired dragon slayer had a massive scar across his entire back, appearing to be from some sort of blast. Natsu, when the hell did you get a scar like this? Kana asked as she reached out and gently ran her fingertips across Natsu's back, causing him to hiss in pain. Oh, I'm so sorry. I wasn't even thinking. It's fine, Kana, it looks a lot worse than it actually is. Natsu said, turning his head and smiling at the brunette card mage. And I got this scar during our last mission when we fought against Duration Cease. This freak Zero was trying to kill us and ended up firing a beam of dark magic at Luce, so I did the only thing I could think of and used my body to shield her. I took the hit directly to my back and got this nasty scar, but Luce was safe and that's all that matters. He literally put his life on the line to protect one of his mates. Kana thought as she softly ran her hand along Natsu's back, doing her best to not cause him any discomfort. Making up her mind, Kana flipped Natsu back over and straddled him once again. I don't know if I love Natsu or not, I've never even experienced romantic love before, but I do want to be closer to him. Any man who would put his life on the line for those he loves is truly something special. Leaning forward, Kana gave Natsu a few pecking kisses on the lips and face. Once Kana was finished, she sat back upright and untied the back of her bikini top. Natsu's eyes were glued to Kana's every movement as she slowly removed her bikini, cupping the dangling fabric against her breasts. Then, with a flick of her wrist, Kana tossed her bikini away, giving Natsu a full view of her bosom. Kana felt an odd sense of pride when she saw that Natsu was ogling her swaying breasts. However, the pink-haired dragon slayer made no move to touch them, his hand trembling slightly. Kana knew that he was likely waiting for her permission, so she smiled and nodded her head. In an instant, Natsu lunged forward and took control once again. Capturing Kana's lips in a fiery kiss, Natsu reached up and began to knead her massive breasts, causing her to moan into their lip lock. The pink-haired dragon slayer's finger sank into Kana's beautiful tan skin, his hands expertly molding and squeezing her breasts. When Natsu playfully pinched Kana's erect nipples, she broke their lip lock and let out a deep moan. As Natsu continued to fondle Kana's breasts, she could feel something rather large and hard pressing against her ass. It excited Kana to know that she aroused Natsu. The impressive length she was feeling was evidence of that. Ah, someone's getting excited. Kana teased in between her moans, grinding herself against Natsu's erection. Leaning forward, Kana whispered hotly into Natsu's ear. Maybe I could help you with that. I don't think I'm the only one excited right now. Natsu said with a toothy grin as he moved his thigh a bit, rubbing it against Kana's groin. The brunette card mage bit her bottom lip to stop a moan from escaping. Natsu's grin widened when he spotted a noticeable wet spot on his pants, just as the scent of Kana's arousal hit him. Inhaling deeply, the pink-haired dragon slayer's eyes filled with lust. "How about we help each other instead, Kana?" I think I know what you're getting at," Kana said, her face flushing bright red as she panted lightly. Letting out a husky breath, Kana reached down and gripped the waistband of Natsu's pants. "But first, we need to get these bad boys off. Ask and you shall receive," Natsu said in a surprisingly seductive tone as Kana moved to the edge of the bed, allowing the pink-haired dragon layer to lift his hips off the bed and slide off his pants. When Kana saw the tent-like bulge in Natsu's boxers, her eyes widened slightly. Then, as Natsu grabbed his boxers, Kana licked her lips in anticipation. With one swift motion, Natsu yanked down his boxers, freeing the trapped dragon within. Kana's jaw literally fell open in shock when she gazed upon Natsu's erect shaft. The brunette card mage had flipped through plenty of X-rated magazines before, but nothing she saw in them compared to the pillar of flesh her eyes were transfixed on. A devious smirk spread across Natsu's face when he saw Kana's slack-jawed expression. "I appreciate you staring, Kana, but I think you still have some clothes to remove." Oh. All right." Kana stuttered out, rapidly shaking her head to snap out of the trance she had fallen into. With her cheeks flushed bright red, Kana took a deep breath and began to unbutton her pants. Wiggling her hips a bit, Kana slid her pants down her tan legs, before stepping out of them. Looping her fingers into her panties, Kana hesitated for a brief moment. But when she locked eyes with Natsu, seeing the lust and passion burning within them, she felt a swell of confidence rush through her. Finally pulling down her panties, Kana now stood fully naked in front of Natsu, resisting the urge to cover herself up. "So Natsu, what do you think?" "You're absolutely gorgeous, Kana," Natsu replied without missing a beat as he stared at the brunette card mage's voluptuous body, taking her in from head to toe. Seeing the arousal dripping down Kana's thighs caused the pink-haired dragon slayer to lick his lips in anticipation. With a smirk, Natsu patted the empty spot on the bed next to him. "Now, why don't we pick up where we left off?" "I like the sound of that," Kana replied, crawling back into the bed straddling Natsu once again. Feeling Natsu's erect shaft pressing against her bare thigh caused Kana to shiver in arousal. After a brief kiss, Kana turned around so that she now faced Natsu's erection, her butt now in his face. "Shit, it's even bigger up close." Her spontaneous fling with Natsu was the first time Kana had ever been intimate with a man, so she had no prior experience to go on as she simply stared at the pink-haired dragon slayer's erect shaft in awe. She knew what 69ing was from the various magazines she had read but had no idea what to do next. As Kana continued to rack her brain, she gasped in surprise when felt something prod her womanhood. A lewd moan escaped her lips when she felt, what she could only assume to be one of Natsu's fingers, enter her. Kana felt a wave of pleasure rush through her body as Natsu's finger began to move around inside her. The brunette card mage felt another jolt of pleasure when Natsu inserted a second finger. Knowing that she couldn't be idle forever, Kana reached out and gripped Natsu's shaft. The heat radiating off Natsu's erect rod shocked Kana, and the electrical tingles from his skin caused her to shiver in pleasure. Slowly, up and down, Kana began to stroke Natsu's erection. Hearing a low moan rumble in the pink-haired dragon's throat, Kana knew that she was doing something right. However, the brunette card mage stopped everything, and nearly screamed out in pleasure, when she felt something new enter her womanhood. Whipping her head around, Kana saw that Natsu's face was buried in her nether regions, his burning tongue probing and stimulating her insides. Delicious, Natsu thought as his mind clouded with lust, making Kana orgasm his only thought. Delving his tongue deeper inside Kana's womanhood, Natsu reached up and pinched her clitoris. A loud moan escaped Kana's mouth as she tightly gripped Natsu's shaft with both hands. An oddly sweet taste. Kana wanted to pleasure Natsu as well, stroking his shaft once again. Then, Kana did the only thing she could think of, she lunged forward and wrapped her lips around the head on Natsu's erection. The musky smell filled Kana's nostrils, causing a moan to rumble in her throat. Acting on instinct, Kana swirled her tongue around the head on Natsu's shaft as she began to bob her head up and down. Natsu involuntarily bucked his hips, thrusting himself deeper into Kana's mouth, which caused her to gag. After recomposing herself, Kana brushed some hair out of her eyes and began to work her mouth once again. This went on for several more minutes, with both mages working vigorously to bring the other to an orgasm. Fuck! I'm getting close. Kana screamed in her mind, feeling a burning sensation welling up in the pit of her stomach. Feeling Natsu's grip on her luscious thighs suddenly tighten, Kana noticed that his shaft was starting to twitch. Kana knew what was likely coming, so she began to increase the speed of her bobbing. A split second later, Kana's entire body shuddered as a wave of intense pleasure rolled through her. As Kana rode her orgasmic high, she felt Natsu explode in her mouth. A lewd moan rumbled in her throat as she eagerly gulped down his warm seed. After what seemed like an eternity, Natsu's ejaculation finally stopped and Kana slowly removed her mouth from his shaft. Panting slightly, Kana ran her hands through her hair. Holy shit, I've never come that hard before, and the taste of Natsu's, it's more addicting than any alcohol I've ever tasted. Thanks for the meal, Kana. Natsu growled as he licked the remaining love juices from his lips, savoring the taste. The brunette card mage yelped in surprise when Natsu suddenly flipped her over, pinning her arms down. With Natsu now hovering over her, Kana stared up at the pink-haired dragon slayer with half-lidded, lust-filled eyes and a teasing smile on her face. Lunging forward, Natsu captured Kana's lips in a fiery kiss, attacking her tongue with his own. When both mages broke their lip lock, Natsu rested his forehead against Kana's. I'm still raring to go if you are. Oh. Kana hummed, gazing down and seeing that Natsu was fully erect once again. Looks like you are. Are you ready, Kana? Natsu asked as he stared into the brunette card mage's eyes. We can always pick up where we left off another time. Fuck no. I want to do this now. Kana said with a smile, reaching up and caressing Natsu's cheek. Just please be gentle, it's my first time. Of course. Natsu said as he gave Kana a brief kiss, reaching down and gripping his shaft. Slowly, Natsu rubbed the head of erection against Kana's dripping womanhood, causing her to whine in frustration. Deciding that he had teased her enough, Natsu inched himself inside Kana. When only about half of Natsu's shaft was inside, both mages were already moaning in pleasure. Shit, Kana, you feel amazing. God damn, I've never felt something like this before. Kana moaned out, tightly gripping the bedsheets as she felt the pink-haired dragon slayer slowly fill her womanhood. Soon enough, Natsu was fully hilted inside her, not moving so that Kana could get used to his size. The brunette card mage was fully expecting to be intense pain, but aside from slight discomfort, she was completely fine. After about a minute, the discomfort was gone and was starting to be replaced by pleasure. Rocking her hips, a throaty moan escaped Kana's lips. I think you can start moving now, Natsu. With a devious grin, Natsu lunged forward and captured Kana's lips as he began to slowly move his hips back and forth. Reaching up, Natsu began to knead and mold Kana's bouncing breasts, causing her to moan loudly into their lip lock. Natsu steadily picked up his pace, soon pounding himself deep inside Kana. The brunette broke their kiss and screamed out in pleasure, wrapping her arms around Natsu's neck and hugging his head in between her massive breasts. Fuck me, Natsu. Kana exclaimed as she gripped the back of Natsu's head, tugging on his spiky pink hair. Harder. Faster. The pink-haired dragon slayer complied, rapidly pounding into the brunette card mage's dripping womanhood, while also sucking on one of her breasts. Kana's moans and screams of pleasure filled the entire apartment. Luckily, for both Natsu and Kana, the rest of Fairy Hill's residents had left the dormitory and were already at the guild hall. So, no one could hear the lewd sounds echoing down the halls. Growing tired of the missionary position, Natsu briefly pulled out of Kana, causing her to whine in disapproval. Simply following Natsu's lead, Kana soon found herself on her side, with one of her legs lifted into the air. Before the brunette card mage could even question the new position, Natsu shoved his entire length back into her with one thrust. Kana screamed out in ecstasy, her tongue lolling out of her mouth. Natsu's rough hand tightly gripped Kana's thigh as he rapidly thrust into her. Turning her head, Kana captured Natsu's lips once again in a somewhat awkward kiss. Kana, I think I'm getting close. Natsu grunted out, the speed of his pounding increasing with every passing second. Where do you want it? Inside. I need to feel it. Kana exclaimed without hesitation as she began to move her ass toward Natsu, in time with his thrusts. The brunette card mage could feel a familiar sensation welling up inside her. I'm so close too. I sense some hesitation in her heart. She is not ready to become a full mate. But we will still claim her. She will make an excellent vassal. With the instincts of his magic spurring him on, Natsu pulled Kana closer and hugged her back against his chest. After a few more powerful thrusts, the pink-haired dragon slayer could feel himself reaching the edge. Then, with one final thrust, Natsu fully buried himself inside Kana. Just Natsu released his seed inside Kana, he bit down onto her neck and pumped a small amount of his magic into her. Kana screamed out in pleasure as she was slammed with her own orgasm, her womanhood tightening around Natsu's shaft and milking every last drop of his seed. Holy shit! Kana said, panting heavily as she felt Natsu slowly pull out of her. The brunette card mage groaned in disappointment, already missing the sensation of fullness. That was incredible. Looking down at her body, Kana sighed when she saw that she was coated in a sheen of sweat. Damn it! I'm gonna need another shower. I'll join you. Natsu said with a smirk as he kissed Kana's neck, causing her to giggle and playfully smack him. Pulling away slightly, Natsu saw the faint outline of a mate mark on the crook of Kana's neck. The mark wasn't nearly as elaborate or detailed as his other mates, but it was definitely there. Kissing the mate mark once again, Natsu slapped Kana's round ass and hopped out of the bed. Come on, let's get cleaned up and I'll walk you to the guild. That sounds good to me. Kana said, sliding off the bed as well and rubbing her red rear end. As Kana walked toward the bathroom, Natsu noticed that she now had a single streak of pink hair. Natsu's eyes were glued on Kana as she walked past him, her even move mesmerizing him. The brunette card mage grinned when she saw that Natsu's little dragon was erect once again. Waltzing back over, Kana gripped Natsu's shaft, causing his eyes to widen in surprise. With half-lidded eyes, Kana began to tug Natsu toward the bathroom. The guild can wait a bit longer, it's not going anywhere. Now, hurry up big boy, I'm ready for round 2. 30 minutes later, Fairy Tale Guild Hall. July 7, 777. Lucy hummed as she tapped her chin. I remember Natsu mentioning that date before. That's when the dragon who taught Dragon Slayer magic to people like Natsu and I suddenly disappeared. Wendy explained, pausing for a moment to take a sip of her juice. It happened out of nowhere, like they just vanished into thin air. Where could they have gone? Lucy asked as she gazed down into her drink. Did they have some type of mission they needed to accomplish? Perhaps. Carla added, setting down her glass of tea. It's quite the puzzling situation. The fire dragon, Igneal, the iron dragon, Metallicana, and the sky dragon, Grandini. Happy said with a small smile as he finished tying the bow onto a fish. I wonder where they could be now. Hopping onto his feet, Happy raised the fish above his head and dashed toward Carla. Hey, Carla! This fish, I caught it earlier, and I wanted to give it to you. Speaking of fire dragons, where's Natsu? Wendy asked, scanning around the guild hall. I haven't seen him all morning. He is running late. Lucy said as she rested her head on her palm. The last time I saw him was yesterday afternoon. Releasing a light sigh, a smile soon spread across Lucy's face. He's probably gotten himself in some type of trouble. If he's not here soon, I'll get Urza and we'll go check up on him. Okay. That sounds like a good plan. Wendy cheered, clapping her hands together. Oh. That reminds me. I've been meaning to ask you, Lucy. How did you end up meeting Natsu? If we're talking about when we first met, it was Lucy stopped mid-sentence when the doors to the guild hall opened. Spinning around in her seat, Lucy looked to see if her pink-haired mate had arrived. She quickly spotted Kana stepping into the guild. However, Lucy quirked an eyebrow as she watched Kana stop in the doorway, apparently talking to someone outside. The brunette card mage suddenly laughed and leaned her head back outside for a moment. With a satisfied look on her face, Kana fully entered the guild, waving to Lucy as she walked past. Kana seems way more upbeat than usual. Lucy's eyes were glued onto Kana, scanning for anything out of the ordinary. At first, everything about Kana seemed normal. But when the brunette card mage sat down at the bar, she brushed some hair out of her eyes. That's when Lucy saw it. A single streak of pink almost hidden among Kana's flowing brown locks. Lucy's eyes widened in surprise, knowing there was likely only one explanation for Kana's new hairstyle. Whipping back around in her seat, Lucy wasn't surprised to see Natsu waltzing into the guild, a cocky grin on his face. "Yo! Luce! Wendy!" Natsu called out, waving to both girls as he made his way over toward their table. "How you guys doing?" "Oh, Natsu. We were just talking about you," Wendy said in a cheerful tone as she watched the pink-haired dragon slayer sit down next to Lucy. "You were kinda late this morning." "Well, I did have an eventful night," Natsu said with a chuckle, rubbing the back of his head. "A lot of things happened." They did, and it seems like you have an eventful morning as well," Lucy said in a slightly annoyed tone as she jabbed Natsu in the side with her elbow. The pink-haired dragon slayer was about to complain but stopped dead in his tracks when he saw the fierce look in Lucy's eyes. Suddenly, Lucy began to nod her head toward the bar. Following where Lucy was gesturing, Natsu's eyes widened slightly when he Kana sitting there. Leaning in closer, Lucy whispered in Natsu's ear. "You will tell me what happened later. Don't worry, I wasn't really trying to hide it. I'll tell you, Urza, and Mira later," Natsu said, releasing a light sigh as he wrapped an arm around Lucy's shoulders and pulled her close. "Kana has a lot dash. Will you shut up already?" Natsu was cut off by a sudden exclamation from Carla. The white fur cat turned her head indignantly away from Happy and stormed off the table. "Stop stalking me." "Hey, Carla! Hold on a second," Wendy exclaimed as she slammed her hands onto the table and got out of her seat. However, Carla was ignoring her and continued to walk out of the guild. "Carla! That was rude. Come back and apologize right now. What's up with her?" "There was no need to be so harsh," Natsu said, turning around to face Happy. "Isn't that right, buddy? Why the heck should he be happy?" Carla thought as she balled her paws and walked out the guild's entrance. "That idiot doesn't know anything." "Wait a minute, Carla!" Happy exclaimed, leaping off the table and chasing after the white-furred cat. "I'm sorry if I made you mad. It's weird, don't you think?" Lucy muttered as she tapped her chin and watched Carla and Happy leave. "Carla seems to be cold when it comes to Happy. I wonder why," Wendy said in a concerned tone, clutching a hand over her heart. "What's upsetting you so much, Carla?" Same time, outside Fairy Tale. "Carla!" Happy called out as ran after the white-furred cat, struggling to hold onto the fish he was still carrying. "Please wait." "What is it?" Carla exclaimed in a frustrated tone, crossing her arms over her chest. "I thought I told you to stop following me." I am sorry," Happy said in a somewhat dejected tone as he hung his head. "Did I do something to offend you?" "That's not it," Carla said, stopping in her tracks and turning around to face Happy. She wasn't surprised to see a confused and saddened look on his face. "You can't protect Natsu." "Ha?" Happy breathed out as his eyes widened. What are you talking about?" "You're not strong enough to protect Natsu." "But I'm going to protect Wendy," Carla replied, continuing to walk away once again. "No matter what happens, I will protect Wendy." "Well, so am I. I'll keep Natsu safe too," Happy exclaimed in a slightly offended tone as he clutched the fish against his chest. "Natsu was nice enough to call me his friend. I need to look out for him. And I'm saying you can't," Carla yelled, turning down an alleyway. "You can't protect him when you don't even know what you are." "I don't know what I am," Happy thought just as he felt a raindrop hit his head. Looking up, the blue-furred cat saw dark storm clouds rolling in overhead. What could she mean by that? 15 minutes later, streets of Magnolia. Where could she be? Wendy muttered to herself, scanning the streets for any sign of Carla. Glancing down a side street, Wendy breathed a sigh of relief when she spotted Carla walking toward her. Carla! I finally found you! Wendy! Carla exclaimed in a surprised tone as she rested her paws on her hips. Look at you! Out in this rain without an umbrella. You'll catch a cold. I could say the same for you, Carla. Wendy said in an upset tone, crouching down next to the white-furred cat. Carla, we only just recently joined Fairy Tale, so we should try to get along with everyone. That isn't necessary. Carla said as she turned her head away and crossed her arms over her chest. As long as you're here, I don't need anyone else. Geez. It's always the same thing with you. Wendy pouted, puffing out her cheeks a bit. You have to try and dash. Wendy paused when she heard footsteps approaching. Then her eyes widened slightly when a faint scent hit her nose through the pouring rain. This smell, it's oddly familiar. Who's this? Carla asked as both she and Wendy watched the cloaked newcomer walk closer. I hope they don't want any trouble. Wendy. The cloaked stranger said, surprising the blue-haired dragon slayer. It's good to see you again. Wendy quirked an eyebrow, the stranger's voice sounding quite familiar. Reaching up, the stranger pulled off his head covering. I never thought you'd come to this guild. I guess Natsu found you after all. Jalal! Wendy exclaimed as her eyes widened in shock. How are you here? I thought you got arrested. That was someone else. Not me. The Jalal lookalike said, slowly shaking his head. I know it can be confusing. That's preposterous. Carla exclaimed as she pointed at Jalal. No matter what lies you say, you're definitely Jalal. I am Mystigan, a fairy tale mage. Mystigan introduced himself, crouching down so that he was no eye level with Wendy. 7 years ago, I didn't know much about this world. So I used the name Jalal with you and Natsu. This world. Carol thought as she stared at Mystigan in stunned silence. What is he talking about? What a second. Wendy said, feeling tears sting her eyes as she tightly balled her fists. Despite the cold rain, Wendy could still feel the hot tears streaming down her cheeks. Why, you're saying, you're the Jalal I knew 7 years ago? Seeing a soft smile spread across Mystigan's face, Wendy choked back a sob. I've wanted to see you again all this time. I'm so sorry I never went back for you. Mystigan said as he gently patted Wendy's head. The blue-haired dragon slayer sniffled several times, trying to wipe away her tears. But, unfortunately, we don't have time to enjoy our reunion. Standing back up, Jalal stared up at the sky overhead. You have to get out of this town right now. Wendy was cut off when Mystigan suddenly collapsed onto his knees. Instantly, Wendy rushed over to his side. Jalal. I've failed in my duty. Mystigan said through grit teeth, watching as the clouds in the sky began to swirl ominously. The anima has become too big, I can no longer suppress it myself. And soon it will wipe Magnolia off the map. What are you talking about? Wendy exclaimed as she began to panic, frantically shaking Mystigan's shoulders. I don't understand what you're saying. Why is the city going to be destroyed? What's an anima? It's all over, destruction is guaranteed. Mystigan replied, hanging his head and staring at his reflection within a small puddle. But, I at least wanted to save you. Screw that. What about Fairy Tale? Wendy screamed as tears began to stream down her cheeks once again. What going to happen to the guild? What will happen to all my friends? What will happen to Natsu? I'm sorry, Wendy. Mystigan answered in a sullen tone, tightly balling his fists as he felt a single tear fall from his eyes. They're all going to die. Chapter 51 The Kingdom of Idolas. I am Mystigan, a fairy tale mage. Mystigan introduced himself, crouching down so that he was now at eye level with Wendy. 7 years ago, I didn't know much about this world. So I used the name Jalal with you and Natsu. This world. Carla thought as she stared at Mistigan in stunned silence. What is he talking about? What a second. Wendy said, feeling tears sting her eyes as she tightly balled her fists. Despite the cold rain, Wendy could still feel the hot tears streaming down her cheeks. Why, you're saying, you're the Jalal I knew 7 years ago? Seeing a soft smile spread across Mistigan's face, Wendy choked back a sob. I've wanted to see you again all this time. I'm so sorry I never went back for you. Mistigan said as he gently patted Wendy's head. The blue-haired dragon slayer sniffled several times, trying to wipe away her tears. But, unfortunately, we don't have time to enjoy our reunion. Standing back up, Jalal stared up at the darkening sky overhead. You have to get out of this town right now. What are you? Wendy was cut off when Mistigan suddenly collapsed onto his knees. Instantly worried, Wendy rushed over to his side. Jalal. I've failed in my duty. Mistigan said through grit teeth, watching as the clouds in the sky began to swirl ominously. The anima has become too big, I can no longer suppress it myself. And soon it will wipe Magnolia off the map. What are you talking about? Wendy exclaimed as she began to panic, frantically shaking Mistigan's shoulders. I don't understand what you're saying. Why is the city going to be destroyed? What's an anima? It's all over, destruction is guaranteed. Mistigan replied, hanging his head and staring at his reflection within a small puddle. But, I at least wanted to save you. Screw that. What about Fairy Tale? Wendy screamed as tears began to stream down her cheeks once again. What going to happen to the guild? What will happen to all my friends? What will happen to Natsu? I'm sorry, Wendy. Mistigan answered in a sullen tone, tightly balling his fists as he felt a single tear fall from his eyes. They're all going to die. No. I refuse to believe that. Wendy yelled as she violently shook her head, running back toward the guild hall. I have to let everyone know. You can't go. Mistigan exclaimed, struggling to get back his feet and stop the blue-haired dragon slayer. You should get out of town. Even if you're the only one to escape. Just me. Never. Wendy screamed as she kept running, not bothering to look back, despite Carla and Mistigan's pleas. I'm a member of Fairy Tale, damn it. I won't abandon everyone. Same time, back at the Fairy Tale Guild Hall. Nothing's better on a rainy day than staying in and spending time with your boyfriend. Kana said, hugging a barrel of wine as she sat on the edge of the bar. Noticing that Mira Jane was staring at her, Kana smirked and twirled the streak of pink around her finger. Don't you agree, Mira? I do enjoy a nice, relaxing day in. Mira Jane said with a sweet smile, slipping on her coat and making sure the brunette card mage got a good view of her complete mate mark. Looks like you enjoyed yourself last night, Kana. It was this morning actually. Kana said with a smirk as she hugged her barrel of booze a little tighter, a ruddy blush spreading across her cheeks. And yes, I did enjoy myself. It was amazing actually. Well, I'm glad you had fun, just make sure to not overindulge yourself. There are other people who like your boyfriend too and you'll have to share him. Mira Jane said with a wink, reaching down and grabbing her umbrella from behind the bar. You'll have to give me the info later, I'm sure Lucy would love to hear as well. I'll be sure to give you both all the juicy details. Kana said as she watched the white-haired barmaid button up her coat, quirking an eyebrow. You going somewhere, Mira? It's raining like crazy out there. Yes, I'm going to the cathedral. Mira Jane replied with a sad smile as she ran her hand along the bar's counter. I'm sure you know why. Yeah, I got you. Kana said, releasing a light sigh as she lowered her gaze, her eyes full of remorse. Say a prayer for me. Of course. Mira Jane said as she patted Kana's shoulder, before turning her attention toward her brother. Elfman was across the guild, seemingly lecturing Jet and Droy about how they weren't manly enough to protect Levi. Chuckling to herself, Mira Jane waved to get her brother's attention. Elfman, we need to get going. Mira, you tell these guys too. They just came back from a job they completely botched. Elfman exclaimed, growling in frustration as he slammed his fist onto the table in front of Jet and Droy, causing both men to yelp in surprise. They apparently got taken out right away and had to leave it up to Levy to clean up their mess all by herself. I wish he'd give this whole Macho Man routine a rest for just a little while. Mira Jane thought as he smiled sweetly at Jet and Droy, doing her best to hide her frustration. I think Jet and Droy were doing their best. Instantly, both Jet and Droy perked up, Mira Jane's praise boosting their shattered morale. Well, best for them anyway. Mira Jane's backhanded compliment caused Jet and Droy to deflate, slamming their heads onto the table in despair. Releasing a light sigh, Mira Jane quickly walked over and grabbed Elfman's arm, ushering him toward the door. Now, come on Elfman. We need to leave. I'm assuming they're going to the cathedral because of Lysana? Lucy asked, watching Mira Jane and Elfman open the guild's front door and step out into the pouring rain. When Lucy glanced over at Natsu, she saw a saddened look in his eyes as he stared out a nearby window. Scooting a bit closer, Lucy wrapped her arms around Natsu and rested her head on his shoulder. How are you doing, Natsu? I'm managing. Natsu replied after a brief hesitation as he continued to gaze out the window. He may not have looked back at Lucy, but Natsu did reach up and gently grasp one of her hands. Lucy's comforting presence did help ease the pang in Natsu's heart. The anniversary of Lysana's death is coming up soon. Urza and I were going to visit her grave tomorrow. You can come if you want, Luce. I'd love to go with you guys. Lucy said with a small smile, doing her best to soothe Natsu as she rubbed his back. You can tell me all about Lysana. I'm sure you and Urza have plenty of stories to tell. Those two are as close as ever. Kana thought as she rested her head on top of her barrel of wine, watching Lucy continue to cuddle up next to Natsu. Reaching up, Kana rubbed her incomplete mate mark, feeling a faint warmth radiating from it. All that stuff Natsu told me about a dragon's mates is definitely true. It probably isn't as strong as Lucy or Urza's, but I can feel a connection between Natsu and me now. It's a weird feeling, but I don't hate it. Releasing a wistful sigh, Kana twirled her streak of pink hair around her finger. Maybe one day I'll take that next step with Natsu, but right now I'm not looking for a long-term relationship. Damn, would those two get a room already? It's like they're dating or something. Alzak thought, gritting his teeth in frustration as he watched Natsu and Lucy act all lovey-dovey. Stealing a sideways glance, Alzak's face flushed when noticed that Biska was staring at him. Quickly whipping his head away, Alzak felt his heart pounding in his chest. Gah! I can't keep this up forever. Someday I'll tell Biska how I really feel. Would he just man up and say something already? Biska thought as she released a light sigh when Alzak avoided her gaze, before turning her attention back toward Natsu and Lucy. I wish Alzak and I could be like that, so honest about their feelings. I see you're both as close as always. Urza said with a smile, suddenly appearing behind Alzak and Biska, which caused both of them to start sputtering in embarrassment. The present is a precious gift. Don't hesitate forever or else you'll start to have regrets. Both Alzak and Biska's faces flushed red as they glanced at each other. With a light chuckle, Urza patted both of them on the shoulder. I think you both know what I'm talking about. Oi, Urza. Makarov called out as he waved the scarlet-haired knight over to his table. Can you come here for a moment? Of course, master. Urza said, walking up to Makarov and clasping her hands behind her back. What can I do for you, master? Take a seat. Makarov said as he patted the chair next to him, his tone suddenly becoming serious. We need to continue our discussion about that 100-year quest. I've been thinking about it quite extensively and I believe that someone else should take the quest. What do you think? I believe that's a valid decision. Urza replied, slowly nodding her head. Did you have any candidates in mind? Back outside, in the streets of Magnolia. I have to get back. I have to warn everyone. Wendy thought as she panted heavily, sprinting back toward the guild hall at full speed. Nearly slipping as she rounded a corner, Wendy's vision began to blur from the tears stinging her eyes. Please. Let me save. Wendy was violently yanked from her thoughts as she tripped over an uneven piece of stone in the road. With a thud, Wendy slammed onto the ground, sliding a few feet on the slick street. Wendy hissed in pain as she tried to pick herself back up. But she paused when she caught a glimpse of something terrifying in the reflection of a puddle. And no way. What is going on? In the puddle's reflection, Wendy could see the clouds menacingly swirling overhead. Wendy felt her breath hitch as she looked up, watching as the clouds darkened and became almost pitch black in color. Then, the clouds began to swirl faster and faster, opening up a large hole in the sky. Wendy's fear skyrocketed when an ominous light radiated from the hole in the clouds, circling all of Magnolia. Tightly balling her fists, Wendy scrambled onto her feet and began running back toward the once again. Hey! Everyone! Wendy screamed, seeing the guild's entryway come into sight. We've got a problem. The sky is dash. Wendy stopped mid-sentence when the guild hall's front gates began to warp and twist. Then, thick white smoke filled the entire area, causing Wendy to lose sight of the entire fairy tale guild. Wendy gasped as she watched all the buildings and street stalls around her appear to dissipate and disappear into the smoke. What the hell is going on? Everyone! Can anyone hear me? A sudden flash of light caught Wendy's attention, moments before she was sent flying back by a powerful gust of wind. The blue-haired dragon slayer watched in dismay as a massive twister descended from the hole in the sky, sucking up all the buildings, and apparently people, within Magnolia. Shutting her eyes, Wendy did her best to shield herself from the flying debris. But the blistering winds were gone as quickly as they had arrived, and soon Wendy heard nothing, an eerie silence falling over the area. When Wendy slowly reopened her eyes, she couldn't believe what she was seeing, a lump forming in her throat. Surrounding Wendy appeared to be an empty wasteland where Magnolia used to be. The once lively town appeared to completely vanish into thin air. All around Wendy, what appeared to be clumps of glowing dust fell from the sky, forming dozens of small mounds of the material. Wendy's entire body felt numb as she slowly stood back on trembling legs. The blue-haired dragon slayer's mind was a hazy mess as she frantically scanned around for any other people, her heart racing as she began to panic. Tugging on a handful of her hair, Wendy sniffled several times to fight back her tears. The guild is gone, the whole town, everything, everyone. Wendy muttered almost in a daze as she aimlessly walked around the barren remains of Magnolia. You have to be joking, this can't be happening. Cupping her hands next to her mouth, Wendy inhaled deeply, praying that anyone would hear her. Is there anybody out there? Please. Someone answer me. Natsu. Lucy. Carla. Anybody? After several minutes of yelling and receiving no reply, Wendy began to lose all hope and collapsed onto her knees. Staring down at her hands, Wendy saw that they were trembling uncontrollably. Why am I still here? The whole town and guild vanished, so why am I the only one left? Is this some sick joke? Before Wendy could start bawling her eyes out in mourning her missing nakama, she was startled when a large mound of dust next to her began to move. Yelping in surprise, Wendy quickly backed away as the pile of glowing dust began to rise up. Steeling herself for a possible enemy attack, Wendy raised her right arm, her Sky Dragon Slayer magic swirling around it. After a few more moments, the dust began to shake and crack, pieces starting to chip away. Then, Wendy saw a head of spiky pink hair pop out of the ground. An unimaginable wave of relief washed over Wendy when she finally saw a familiar face. She really wasn't all alone. What the fuck happened? Natsu asked in a confused tone, rubbing his head as he scanned his surroundings. There was a flash of light, then everything went dash. Natsu! Wendy yelled as she lunged toward the pink-haired dragon slayer and embraced him in a tight hug. Tears streamed from Wendy's eyes as she buried her head into the crook of Natsu's neck, unable to hold back her sobs. I thought everyone was gone. I thought I was all alone. Wendy? Natsu said in a surprised tone, wrapping his arms around the blue-haired dragon slayer and holding her close. Hoping to soothe Wendy a bit, Natsu began to gently stroke the back of her head. It's okay, Wendy. Everything is going to be fine. We just need to figure out what the hell happened. As Natsu continued to comfort Wendy, he began to scan around for anyone else, even sniffing the air to try and pick up a scent. A frown spread across Natsu's face when he didn't pick up anything. Luz, Urza, Mira, Kana, Juvia, everyone, I hope you're all okay. Natsu's grip on Wendy tightened slightly as he pulled her closer. I can't freak out now, that would just worry Wendy more. Okay, I think I'm okay now, Natsu. Wendy said as she sniffled a few times, reaching up and wiping her tear-stained cheeks. Taking a deep breath to calm herself, Wendy allowed Natsu to continue hugging her. There was a hole in the sky, and guild, and the whole town got sucked into it. Leaning her head back, Wendy pouted when she saw the pink-haired dragon slayer giving her a skeptical look. It's true. We're the only ones who were left behind. Maybe it has something to do with us being dragon slayer? You are correct, Wendy. A familiar voice spoke up from behind both dragon slayers. Wiping around, Wendy and Natsu were surprised to see Carla floating several feet away. Dragon slayers are truly special. Carla! Thank goodness! Wendy exclaimed, her eyes lighting up when she spotted her white-furred companion. I'm so glad that you're okay. Okay, that's one way to put it. Carla muttered as she crossed her arms over her chest and released a light sigh. You dragon slayers are really fortunate to have such special magical power. I'm glad that at least you two are alright. Turning to face Natsu, a frown spread across Carla's face. Although, I wish you wouldn't hold Wendy so close, you punk. Wait a minute. Natsu said, gently pushing Wendy away as he got back onto his feet. The pink-haired dragon slayer's eyes narrowed slightly as he approached Carla. Do you know what's going on here, Carla? You're acting way too calm right now. Yes, I do. And Wendy is correct, your friends and this whole town have vanished. Carla replied, which caused Wendy's eyes to widen in surprise. Or to be more exact, they were sucked into the anima. Anima. Wendy repeated, stroking her chin as her mind went back to a few minutes earlier. Jalal mentioned something about that. The hole Wendy saw in the sky. Carla explained, her gaze lowering as she stared at the ground. It's a gate to another world called Idolos. Carla, how do you know all this? Wendy asked as she clasped her hands together, staring up at the levitating cat. And why weren't you sucked up as well? Natsu! What is going on? A familiar voice suddenly screamed out behind the pink-haired dragon slayer. Turning around, Natsu was surprised to see Happy flying toward them in a panic. Happy flew in between Natsu and Wendy, frantically looking back and forth at both dragon slayers. The whole town, it just disappeared. I'm not from this world, Idolos is where we come from. Carla said, raising her arm and pointing directly at Happy. The male cat and I both. Happy gasped when he heard this sudden revelation, his eyes widening in shock. The reason the town disappeared, the male cat and I, it's our fault. Wait, slow down, Carla. Wendy said as held up her hand to stop the white-furred cat, seeing the distressed look in Happy's eyes. What are you talking about? You're dropping a lot of information on us at once. Idolos is another world parallel to ours. Carla clarified, staring up at the gray sky overhead. She released a light sigh when she saw the remnants of the hole that had swallowed Magnolia. It's a world that has started to lose its magic. Unlike our world, magic is quite limited in Idolos. If they don't find a solution soon, they'll run completely dry. Let me take a guess. Natsu said with a frown as he pointed up to the sky. Their solution has something to do with what happened to Magnolia and our guild. Correct. The king of Idolos is trying to reverse their world's magic loss. Carla replied, crossing her arms over her chest and floating closer to both dragon slayers. He's connected Idolos to our world, and plans to suck the magic out of it. Its official name is Ultra Subspace Magic, Anima. That was the hole that opened up in the sky. Something tells me things didn't exactly go to plan. Natsu said with a click of his tongue as he stared out at the empty void where Magnolia used to be. Sucking up entire towns isn't exactly subtle. And if this was happening across Earthland, it would be huge news. Yes, it all started 6 years ago. The plan was to open anima in numerous locations across the world. Carla explained, glancing up at the remnants of the anima overhead. But it wasn't achieving the results they wanted. Apparently, someone was traveling around and closing the anima. Her eyes narrowing slightly, Carla recounted her earlier meeting with Mystigan. When Wendy told me stories about Jalal, or rather Mystigan, I thought it couldn't be, but now I'm sure it was him. Releasing another sigh, Carla locked eyes with Natsu and Wendy. This time, the anima was too large to close. It sucked up the guild and all of Magnolia, and no one could do anything to stop it. But why would they target Fairy Tail? Natsu asked as his brow furrowed, a frustrated exhale leaving his nostrils. Is it because we have a lot of powerful mages? Exactly. Carla answered in a solemn tone, sparing a few glances over at Happy. They're needed to provide magic power for Idolas. Bastards! Natsu growled as he crossed his arms and bared his fangs. I'll make them pay for stealing everyone, especially my mates. So, Carla. Happy said in a meek tone, getting the white-furred cat's attention. You said that this whole situation is our fault? Indirectly, yes. Carla said as she landed back on the ground and approached Happy, the blue-furred cat looking beyond bewildered. We were given different orders and sent to this world from the kingdom of Idolas. But that doesn't make any sense. Wendy exclaimed, trying to make sense of the overwhelming situation. I saw you were born from an egg, in this world, not Idolas. The same goes for Happy. Natsu said as he crouched down and patted his best friend's head, hoping to ease his mind a little. I found his egg. I want to clear up any misunderstandings. I've never been to Idolas myself. Just as Wendy said, I was born in this world. Carla clarified, tightly balling her paws as she grit her teeth in frustration. But I also have knowledge of Idolas and my orders burned into my mind. We're supposed to know all of it from the moments we were born. Whipping around, Carla pointed angrily at Happy, surprising the blue-furred cat. So, why don't you know anything? I. Happy muttered as he nervously pressed his paws together, awkwardly staring down at the ground to avoid Carla's piercing gaze. I don't know. Anyway, that's how it is. Carla said, turning her back to Happy and huffing in frustration. As long as we're citizens of Idolas, this entire mess is our fault. Hold on a second, Carla. Wendy said as she approached the white-furred cat, kneeling down next to her. Just a second ago, you mentioned that you have different order. What does that mean? I can't tell you that. Carla yelled, causing Wendy to yelp and fall back in surprise at the sudden outburst. I can't tell you. Please, tell me, Carla. Happy said in a pleading tone as he hung his head. I want to know what I really am. Didn't I just say that I can't tell you? Carla snapped, stomping her foot in anger as she whipped around to glare at Happy. Just figure things out on your own. All right. That's enough. We shouldn't be snapping at each other like this. Natsu spoke up as he stepped in between Happy and Carla. Crouching down, the pink-haired dragon slayer smiled and patted both cats on the head, causing an embarrassed blush to spread across Carla's face. Look, I know we're all a bit tense right now, especially after everything we've just learned. And Carla, I'm sure you're blaming yourself for everything that's happened today. I wasn't. Carla sputtered, staring up at Natsu, his bright smile never fading. Sighing in annoyance, Carla turned her back to Natsu but still allowed him to pat her head. Keep your theories to yourself, you pink-haired ape. Okay, now that everyone's calmed down a bit, and we understand our situation a bit better. Natsu said with a chuckle as he pointed toward the remnants of the anima overhead before cracking his knuckles. Why don't we go check this Idolas place out? You don't understand the situation. You understand nothing at all. Carla exclaimed, angrily pumping her fists into the air. You probably didn't understand half the things I said. Natsu. Happy whined as he tugged on the pink-haired dragon slayer's pant leg, his stomach growling a bit. I got so worried that I made myself really hungry again. Well, that's just a sign that you're feeling better, Natsu said with a grin before turning his gaze toward the semi-dark sky overhead. All our nakama are up there in Idolas, right? So, we can't just stand around here and feel sorry for ourselves. We need to go help them. What do you think, Carla? Wendy asked as she sat back upright, staring at her white-furred partner with hopeful eyes. Is it possible? It's definitely possible, Carla replied, releasing a light sigh and crossing her arms over her chest. I think everyone is there, but I don't know if they can be saved. In the first place, I don't know if it's even possible for us to come back from Idolas. Well, if I don't have my mates and nakama, I don't have much else tying me to this world, Natsu said with a grin as he punched his fist into his palm, causing a burst of blue flames. So, I say let's get going. I'm with Natsu on this, Wendy said, eagerly nodding her head. We have to at least try to save everyone. It's all right, Carla, Happy said with a weak smile as he tried to reassure the white-furred cat. We'll fix everything. Damn it, you all just don't know when to quit, Carla muttered underneath her breath, her body trembling a bit as she clenched her teeth. Pausing for a moment, Carla inhaled deeply to calm herself. Because of Wendy, I ended up stumbling into being a fairy tale member. You all may get on my nerves, but I do consider you friends. So, I do feel a sense of responsibility to help, especially since my homeworld did this. I can take you to Idolas, but I'll need a few promises from you all. Of course, Carla, Wendy exclaimed with a bright smile as she crouched down next to her longtime partner. What do you want us to promise? Since I'll be returning to Idolas, that means I'll be abandoning my orders. That means we cannot be discovered by the kingdom of Idolas under any circumstances. So, we must all travel in disguises, Carla explained, causing both Natsu and Wendy to look at each other. After a few moments, both dragon slayers shrugged their shoulders and nodded. Turning around, Carla pointed at Happy once again. Next, the male cat must not attempt to find out his orders. But Happy tried to protest but stopped when he saw the dead serious look in Carla's eyes. Releasing a light sigh, Happy hung his head. Third, aside from a few details, I know nothing of Idolas. So, I can't be any use as a guide, Carla continued, before taking a deep breath to prepare herself for what she was about to say. Finally, if either the male cat or I show any signs that we betray you, I want you to kill us without hesitation. Both Natsu and Wendy gasped when they heard this, neither of them comfortable with the thought of having to kill their best friend. However, before either dragon slayer could protest, Carla grabbed a hold of Wendy and took off into the sky. If you're in agreement, let's go. Male cat, grab Natsu and follow me. Whoa! Wendy exclaimed as they climbed higher into the air, feeling the wind whip her face. We can just fly to Idolas. The reason we have our wings, Carla explained, bursting through a series of clouds, is so that we can use them to fly back home. Alright, let's go, Happy, Natsu said with a toothy grin as he gave the distressed blue-furred cat a thumbs up. We'll save everyone and get to see your homeworld. Natsu. Happy breathed out, seeing the pink-haired dragon slayer's beaming smile raised his spirits a bit. With his wings sprouting from his back, Happy grabbed a hold of Natsu's vest and sped after Wendy and Carla. Aye, sir. Male cat. Release all your magic, Carla yelled over the rushing winds, wincing as air stung and whipped her face. With a resonating boom, both Carla and Happy rocketed forward, their immense speed sending out a shockwave. We'll enter Idolas through the remnants of the anima. We must break through with our AERA. With another burst of speed, Carla and Happy raced toward the wispy remains of the anima left lingering above them. Both cats and dragon slayers closed their eyes as they reached the center of the anima. Then, without any hesitation, they flew straight through it. There was a deafening bang, followed by a massive burst of energy as the anima closed completely behind the fairy tale members. Opening their eyes, the remaining members of Fairy Tail marveled as they passed through a swirling passage of pink and blue magic. Their colorful trip was short-lived as a bright light suddenly appeared ahead of them. A few moments later, the 4 fairy tale members exited into the skies above a strange and unknown land. Everyone gasped in awe at their new surroundings, scanning everything around them in wide-eyed shock. The sky was lime green, instead of blue, and filled with dozens of small cloud formations. Off in the distance, celestial objects such as moons and planets could be seen, their rings and other details clearly visible. Beneath the fairy tale mages were floating island terrains levitating off the mainland, as well as streams of flouting rivers that flow through them, all of which were naturally suspended in the air by the world's dwindling magic. So, this is Idolas. Carla muttered as she watched a pair of strange-looking winged reptiles fly awkwardly underneath her. This is where the male cat and I come from. It really is a different world. However, before any more sightseeing could be had, both Happy and Carla noticed that they were no longer moving forward. Looking back, both cats were shocked to see that their wings had suddenly disappeared. Happy and Carla had one brief moment to look at each other before they began to plummet toward the ground. The 4 fairy tale members screamed in terror as they rapidly approached the ground, crashing through numerous tree branches on their descent. A split second later, all 4 of them smashed through the roof of a shed-like building. What the hell happened? Natsu groaned, sitting upright and rubbing the back of his head. Rolling his neck, Natsu heard a few cracks as he worked his kinks out. Why did Happy and Carla's wings disappear? I knew you weren't paying attention. Carla replied with an annoyed huff as she crossed her arms over her chest. In this world, you can't use magic at will. It's true, Wendy said, staring down at her hands as they trembled slightly. A strange tingling sensation was spreading throughout her entire body. I'm getting this really odd feeling. This place. Happy muttered as he scanned their surroundings, pressing a paw to his chin. It looks like some type of warehouse. Well, this actually worked out in our favor, Carla said, walking over to a partially open cardboard box. After a few moments of digging around, Carla eventually pulled out a bundle of clothes and fabrics. We can't use whatever's in here for disguises. Oh man, this stuff is really old school, Natsu said as he searched through several piles of clothes, eventually putting on a tunic and a hood to hide his face. After brushing off the wrinkles in his clothes, a small grin spread across Natsu's face. But you know, this stuff ain't half bad. It's pretty interesting. Grabbing another bunch of clothes, Natsu whipped around, wanting to help Wendy pick out an outfit. Hey, Wendy. How about? Natsu stopped dead in his tracks when he looked at Wendy, a fierce blush instantly spreading across his face. The blue-haired dragon slayer was completely naked from the waist up, using her arms to cover her budding breasts, a new shirt in one of her hands. Wendy stared at Natsu in wide-eyed shock for a few moments before she fully realized what was happening. As soon as the situation finally sank in, Wendy's entire face and upper chest turned near neon red in embarrassment. Yelping in surprise, Wendy turned her back to Natsu and crouched down to hide more of herself from his stupefied gaze. Kia! Why'd you turn around, Natsu? There is a girl in here with you, Wendy yelled, refusing to turn back around and look at the pink-haired dragon slayer. I don't really mind you looking, but it's still so embarrassing. If you want to see me so bad, just wait until my birthday. Shit. I'm so sorry, Wendy, Natsu exclaimed as he quickly covered his eyes and turned his back to the blue-haired dragon slayer, his heart thundering in his chest. I just got excited to show you a few disguises. I totally wasn't thinking. You perverted pig. So, you've finally shown your true colors. Carla roared in a fit of rage, rushing over and furiously clawing at Natsu's legs. How dare you lay your eyes on Wendy's naked body? Ow. Ow. Damn it, Carla. That really hurts, Natsu exclaimed as he leaped away, trying to put as much distance between him and the pissed-off cat as possible. I'll step outside and let you guys change. However, before Natsu could step out the door, he was stopped when someone grabbed his sleeve. Ha! You don't have to leave, I'm already changed, Wendy said in a shy tone, still hiding her flushed face from Natsu. The blue-haired dragon slayer now had her hair up in pigtails held together by 2 animal ear-like attachments. Two strands of her hair hung down on each side of her face. She wore a red and black long-sleeve top with 2 buttons in the center and an ascot around her neck. The top was adorned with a small pattern around the shoulders and a small trim around the upturned cuffs. She also wore a frilled skirt with a small trim and thigh-high socks. So, how do I look? You look really cute, Natsu said with a small smile as he scratched his cheeks burning light pink. Way better than anything I picked out. Thank you, Wendy said, holding back a beaming smile as she tugged at the trim of her skirt. Natsu said I'm cute. I feel so happy right now. I'm watching you. Carla growled as she floated up next to Natsu, extending her claws next to his face. You keep your grubby man hands off Wendy. Message received, Natsu said with a nervous chuckle, taking a few steps away from Carla. The pink-haired dragon slayer grunted when his back suddenly hit a wall. Glancing to the right, Natsu's eyes widened in complete shock when he spotted a familiar-looking insignia outside a nearby window. Less than 50 yards away appeared to be a building constructed within the base of a massive tree. But the standout feature was the large banner hung above the door, with the fairy tale logo boldly on display. What the hell? Guys, it's fairy tale. We found everyone. What? Wendy exclaimed as she dashed over to the window, standing on her tiptoes to peer through it. Her eyes widened in surprise when she spotted Fairy Tale's logo. No way. That was way too fast. A bunch of our Nakama must have gathered together and put up that banner so that our other guild members could find them. Natsu yelled with a massive grin, bolting out the door and sprinting toward the building without a second thought. In the excitement, Wendy and Happy raced after Natsu, with Carla being the only one to show any type of hesitation. I can't believe we found everyone so easily. I hope they're all okay. Panting slightly, Natsu burst through the makeshift guildhall's front doors with a massive smile on his face. However, Natsu's smile quickly faded when everything within the guild seemed slightly off. Everyone's appearance was different, ranging from only slight changes to radically different outfits. The first person to catch Natsu's eyes was Juvia, or at least someone who he thought was Juvia. The blue-haired water mage was usually quite reserved with her outfits, but now she wore a miniature top hat that was ultramarine colored. Her shirt was a white sailor suit-like top that had golden trim at its borders, with a wine-red tie that laid across her large bust. Her shirt was tied just below her chest in order to show as much of her midsection as possible. With this, she paired an ultramarine miniskirt that had a single golden brooch at its center, along with tan tights and high heels. She also sported short white gloves that only covered her hands. Juvia is going out on a job now, Juvia announced as she grabbed a flyer off the request board, waving it in air. Don't wait up for, Juvia. Hold up. Wait for me, Juvia-chan. Natsu's jaw literally fell open in pure shock as he watched Gray, or someone who was impersonating him, run up to Juvia. The normally bare-naked ice mage was now dressed in at least 4 coats, in addition to a scarf and gloves. I want to go with you, is that all right? You must be boiling alive in there. How many jackets are you wearing anyway? Juvia laughed, waving dismissively as she ignored Gray's request and began to walk toward the front door. Talk to me again after you lose a few layers. Why, you know that I can't stand the cold. Gray exclaimed as he awkwardly waddled after Juvia, struggling just to walk with all his extra clothing. I think I need to grab another jacket, I'm feeling a breeze. What the fuck is happening? Natsu breathed out, watching the entire scene unfold in utter disbelief. It's like they're completely different people. And Natsu, Wendy said as she tugged on Natsu's sleeve, frantically pointing toward other strange scenes happening across the guild. Jet and Droy were apparently the strongest mages in the guild and were currently bullying a crying elfman. Nab appeared to actually be busy going out on jobs, instead of being utterly indecisive and never choosing one. Kana was wearing a non-revealing, long-sleeved white blouse tied at the neck with a small, dark pink ribbon, with frills decorating the sleeves, collar, and waist. To complete her elegant, ladylike appearance, Kana wore a long, light pink skirt underneath all of this, opening with a Bergera hat, decorated with a simple pink rose. She even refused to drink alcohol, which caused Natsu to do a double take. Everyone is acting really weird. Oh god, I'm in hell. Natsu groaned, wobbling a bit before collapsing onto the ground, staring up the ceiling overhead. What is going on here? Oi! Natsu was snapped out of his thoughts when someone suddenly called out and crouched next to him. The pink-haired dragon slayer winced slightly when whoever was standing over smacked his head. Who the fuck are you creeps? And what the hell do you think you're doing bursting into our guild like that? Okay, listen here you dash. Natsu stopped mid-sentence when looked up and spotted the face of his first mate, Lucy Heartfilia. But despite the woman looking just like Lucy, the pink-haired dragon slayer could tell something was off right away. Is this really Luce? Lucy still had her warm brown eyes and blonde hair that was tied up, but this time with a skull hairband. She was dressed in a very revealing, black leotard with a large erect collar that was exposed at the front and was cut to reveal her stomach and ample cleavage. The suit had no leggings and she wore a pair of long thigh-high boots that appeared to be held up by thin overlapping belts. The leotard also sported a single metal shoulder guard on the right shoulder and a sheet of white fabric attached to her right hip cascading down to her knee. She also wore a single white sleeve over her forearm and had a decorative black tattoo encircling her upper left arm. Aside from Lucy's odd appearance, Natsu instantly noticed that she was missing two crucial accessories. Her hair was pure blonde once again, missing the several streaks of pink she gained after they became mates. Her mate mark was also completely gone, completely missing from her exposed neck. Wait a second. This strange Lucy muttered as she leaned in closer to get a better look at the pink-haired dragon slayer. Her eyes narrowing as she examined him closely. Natsu, is that you? A large smile suddenly spread across the Lucy imposter's face. Natsu was caught completely off guard when she picked him onto his feet and pulled him for a bone-crushing bear hug. There's no mistaking it. It really is you, Natsu. Hugging Natsu a little closer, Lucy whispered into his ear. Where the hell have you been all this time? You made me worried. Hold the hell up! Natsu exclaimed, suddenly pushing Lucy away, which caused several people in the guild to gasp in surprise. The blonde's eyes widened in shock as she stared at Natsu. You're not Luce. At least not the one I know. Ha! Lucy yelled with a frown as she rested her hands on her hips. What are you talking about? Did you hit your head or something? You're acting nothing like the Luce I know. Your hair is missing its pink streaks. You're missing your mate mark. Natsu proclaimed, pointing at the strange Lucy, feeling his heart pounding in his chest. Inhaling deeply, Natsu's eyes narrowed slightly, confirming his suspicions. And your scent is completely different. All of your scents are completely different. What? Don't go smelling me, you freak. Lucy screamed as her face flushed bright red in embarrassment. Winding up, Lucy attempted to hit Natsu with a powerful roundhouse kick. However, the entire guild was stunned when Natsu reached up and stopped her kick with his bare hand, none of them more shocked than Lucy herself. There's no way, Natsu was never stopped one of my attacks before. Alright. That's enough, everyone. Lucy. You know better than to start fights with Natsu. The pink-haired dragon slayer's entire body stiffened when heard a voice he thought he would never hear again. Natsu's heart was already racing, but now he could feel it thundering in his chest. He was sure that people nearby could hear it. Releasing his grip on Lucy's leg, Natsu felt a lump forming in his throat. Finally mustering up enough courage, Natsu turned around and saw the face of someone he believed was dead, Lysana Strauss. Also, Jet and Droy. Please stop picking on my brother. There's no way, this can't be real. Natsu thought, feeling his breath hitch as he examined Lysana from head to toe. Lysana wore a light blue tank top with crossed straps around her neck. She had on a long, flowing skirt, with a sash tied around her waist and sandals. Her hair was a bit shorter than Natsu remembered and her white fairy tale guild mark was visible on her thigh. Knowing that something was up with members of the guild, Natsu sniffed the air several times. He paused after a few moments, tears stinging his eyes when a very familiar scent hit his nose. This scent, there's no mistaking it. And another thing. Lysana paused when she noticed that Natsu was slowly walking toward her, tears forming in his eyes. Natsu, is everything okay? There's no mistaking it. Natsu said, before lunging forward and embracing Lisanna in a powerful hug. Lisanna squeaked in surprise as Natsu pulled her closer, cupping the back of her head tightly gripping her shoulder. Before Lisanna could protest at all, she was stopped when she felt something fall onto her shoulder. Looking up, Lisanna was shocked to see tears streaming down Natsu's cheeks. Sniffling several times in a vain attempt to fight back his tears, Natsu couldn't hold back his overflowing emotions. There's no mistaking it, you're my Lisanna. That wraps up this part of What If Natsu Had Dual Elements. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.